Welcome back. Israel declaring a new phase of war, turning its focus now to the northern front against Hezbollah and Iranian proxies. Hezbollah targeted again yesterday in another series of device explosions, this time involving walkie-talkies and solar panels, just a day after hundreds of pagers simultaneously detonated in Lebanon. Israel suspected to be behind those attacks. White House National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby denying any U.S. involvement in any of this. Watch.
Admiral, what's the White House response to the exploding walkie-talkies in Lebanon today? And what's the latest U.S. assessment? And does the U.S. consider this a justifiable escalation?
What I can tell you is we were not involved in yesterday's incidents or today's in any way, and I don't have anything more to share. All I'll say is that we want to see the war end. And everything we've been doing since the beginning has been designed to prevent the conflict from escalating.
Joining me now is the former Director of National Intelligence and former Texas Congressman John Ratcliffe. John, it's good to see you. Thank you so much.
Maria, great to be with you.
What is your reaction to this? And also, we had on an individual earlier, Shabazz, who spoke at the Trump rally last night, who has become a one-issue voter. And he's a longtime Democrat. He's voting now for Trump because he is outraged by this administration's reaction to the Israel war. Your reaction?
Well, you know, John Kirby doesn't always tell the truth from the podium at the White House, but in this case he does when he says that the U.S. was not involved. But that's a problem, Maria. I think when we look at the operation, a lot of people have expressed, amazement or surprise at Israel's ability to carry out this counterintelligence and espionage operation against Hezbollah. I am not. So as the Director of National Intelligence, these are the kinds of things we did with Mossad routinely. I saw it up close, and their ability to carry this out, obviously it had widespread impact on a terrorist organization and its ability in the short term and the long term to carry out terrorist activities. It's also a huge success from an intelligence gathering perspective. Obviously, they knew these pagers would be going to Hezbollah terrorists and supporters, but they didn't know who all of those people are. Now, based on who was injured, they're aware of that and they're able to track the organization better. And then, of course, there's the huge psychological impact that they have now impressed on that whole organization.
Wow.
Because it started with pagers, but then it moved to touch-to-talk walkie-talkies, shortwave radios. Hezbollah as an organization doesn't know who they can trust and how they can communicate with each other effectively. So all of that, Maria, goes to a conversation you and I have many times. When I say to you, we need Israel as an intelligence partner, this really underscores how good they are and how much they help our national security posture. Remember, Maria, Hezbollah is an organization that killed 241 Marines in 1983 at our barracks in Beirut. And this administration should be cheering Israel and supporting Israel in these types of efforts. And instead, they're blocked out because Israel doesn't trust the United States to share intelligence based on the things that have been happening in the Middle East. And that's a problem. And that's a bridge that's going to have to be rebuilt with a new administration. And a Harris administration isn't going to be able to rebuild that bridge because it's the same people that burned it down throughout the last 3.5 years. Yes. So only if Donald Trump becomes elected will we have the ability to re-engage with Israel as an important partner in the most volatile region in the world. Yeah. Let's keep in mind, Maria, we handed the Biden-Harris administration peace in the Middle East, and now it's war.
Yeah, well, you did the Abraham Accords, which was an incredibly important movement. The FBI and U.S. intelligence have revealed that Iranian hackers are still trying to influence the election. 47 days left until Election Day. Information stolen from Trump's campaign, thought to have been sent to Biden's campaign before he left the race in July. U.S. intelligence said that in a statement, quote, Iranian malicious cyber actors in late June and early July sent unsolicited emails to individuals when associated with President Biden's campaign that contained an excerpt taken from stolen non-public material from former President Trump's campaign as text in the emails. Investigators say there's no information indicating anyone replied to those Iranian emails. Info was also reportedly sent to media outlets, and a Harris campaign spokesperson said a few individuals were targeted on their personal emails. So this brings me back to the treatment of Iran from this administration. And you've made the point many times, we've had no deterrence. We do not respond whatsoever. So how should we be responding to this?
Well, I think what you see here with regard to Iran is that Iran actually shares a common goal with the Harris campaign, which is to stop Donald Trump at all costs. And I think that's why you see Iran trying to help the Harris campaign. But Maria, this issue with Iran, you know, you've heard President Trump say many times, and you and I have talked about it, about we handed off an Iran that was poorer, weaker, broke, less influential than any before. The problem here, whether we're talking about Gaza, whether we're talking about Hezbollah in Lebanon, or whether we're talking about Iran's efforts to interfere in the U.S. election, this is all a result of the fact that while Joe Biden was tanking and Kamala Harris were tanking the U.S. economy with record inflation, they were rebuilding the Iranian economy. So our last year in office, the Iranian economy was at a GDP of $239 billion. A year later into the Biden-Harris administration, they're at $360 billion. So their GDP grew by 50%. They became the fastest growing economy in the world because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris lifted sanctions and paid billions in ransom to a terrorist regime. And now these kinds of things with Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and then this election interference that's taking place in our country that weren't happening before are happening because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made Iran stronger, and as a result, the world is, you know, experiencing the chaos that has brought.
Well, it sounds like Iran would like Kamala Harris in the White House.
No doubt.
Yeah. All
of our adversaries, I'll be real clear about this. Our intelligence is clear. China, Russia, Iran, all American adversaries have improved their position around the world under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. There's no question about that. You can't find a place on the map where our national security posture hasn't worsened and where our adversaries haven't advanced economically, militarily, politically. So they all want Kamala Harris because they don't want tough leadership, strong leadership, deterrence in the White House that Donald Trump brought and will bring if he's reelected.
And you know, speaking of one of those adversaries is China, and you know, Gordon Chang was with me earlier saying, look, the way that Israel, you know, was able to detonate those devices, China could do that to us, right? I mean, why are we buying drones used in the military from communist China? I just asked Ro Khanna this, and I've been asking all morning. This makes no sense to me. This is clearly an adversary, and we're actually using their drones?
Well, that's exactly right, Maria, but you just used the term, this is an adversary. You haven't heard the Biden-Harris administration talk about China as an adversary. They refer to them as a pacing challenge. They talk about healthy competition. Look, I think that, you know, one of the things, the conversations that you and I have had over the last few years about China has helped turn the tide where most people see that China is sinister and nefarious in what they're doing below the surface in their engagement with the U.S. economy. And there's no excuse. We should have learned the lessons of COVID and supply chain, and when we're reliant upon China, as we were early on during COVID, to make those mistakes and to do the kinds of things that you're talking about, you know, acquire drones that have Chinese parts or are manufactured, you know, by Chinese manufacturers, is really inexcusable. It shouldn't be happening. It wouldn't be happening in a Trump administration. But unfortunately, this administration and a Harris administration would continue down this path with regard to all of our allies, I mean, all of our adversaries, China, Russia, and Iran, setting policy based on a fear of escalation, which has really just led to appeasement and our adversaries on the march around the globe.
Well, I could only imagine Tim Walz has been so adoring of communist China, saying everyone's the same, everyone shares, I had the best time, I'll never be treated that well. I'm thinking, what, are you aware of what communist China has been doing, undermining America? I want to get your take, though. Speaking of toughness, President Trump facing a second assassination attempt on Sunday, the second attempt on his life in 10 weeks. Trump and others blaming hateful rhetoric for increasing political violence, including Democrats, consistently calling him a threat to democracy in our country. Members of the Trump assassination task force revealed that Trump reportedly has had the same level of Secret Service protection that he had as president since the Butler, Pennsylvania shooting on July 13th. But, John, I mean, I have to ask the question, why wasn't the perimeter of this most recent space been swept by the Secret Service? So is that the same level of protection?
Well, President Trump, to his credit, has taken the high road on this. He's talked about the heroism of the Secret Service, both in Butler and in this most recent event down in Florida. And he's right. At the rank and file level, the people that have moved quickly to protect him and to stop these attacks from being, from taking his life. But we all know it's not the rank and file, it's the leadership. And it's not just a budgetary issue. Some of this is political, Maria, as we've talked about, the decisions that are made in terms of the kind of protection that's been afforded. When you had a Secret Service director who was a close personal friend, chosen for that job because she was a close personal friend of Jill Biden. When you have an FBI special agent in charge now of the assassination attempt in Florida, having to scrub his social media from anti-Trump rhetoric, it undermines people's confidence in the kind of protection that Donald Trump should be getting, as the leading candidate for president.
Real quick before you go, Tren de Aragua, this Venezuelan gang raging throughout America, intimidating everybody, stealing, as well as attacking people. What can you tell us about what's going on in Texas?
Well, what I can tell you is that the governor of Texas is doing more to secure the sovereignty and integrity of our territorial borders and protect Americans than the president of the United States, who doesn't seem to care about these issues. Border security has led to these kinds of problems, and it's going to continue if Kamala Harris is in charge of our border. They put America, in a terrible place. The federal government has failed miserably in its primary role, preamble to the Constitution, provide for the common defense. We're not doing it because of the decision makers that are in the White House right now. They need to change. America was safer, better, and more prosperous under President Trump, but he needs to be back in office. That's how these problems are fixed.
John, it's great to get your take on all this. We so appreciate it.
You bet. Great to see you.
Thank you so much. John Ratcliffe here in the studio. We'll be right back. You're watching Morning